This is JBM from VillainNews. This is going to be my horror movie marathon video continued. I'm going to focus on the 2002 made-for-TV movie. I really love this one. Murder from Greenwich, based on the real-life murder of Martha Moxley that took place Halloween night 1975. If you haven't even heard of this case, I'm surprised everyone's really heard of this case. I mean, Unsolved Mysteries. Dominic Dunn's done a book on it. Mark Furman's book, who basically cracked the case. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't heard of it. If that doesn't convince you to watch it, it's also based on a Kennedy, basically, who committed murder, or who's alleged committed murder. A Kennedy family who was involved in a murder scandal in the mid-70s. It's a great story, compelling story based on a real life, like I'm saying, so that makes it even that more interesting. It has a pretty good cast for a made-for-TV movie. I'll always remember Maggie Grace, who pretty much who's made a pretty good career out of her acting profession. Stars in this as Martha Moxley, the 15-year-old teenager who gets murdered on Halloween night. And it's a movie that goes from back and forth from 1975 until present day. Mark Furman, who's a lawyer, who's played by Chris Maloney, the guy who plays Freak Show in Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, 2004. The guy's an unbelievable actor, so much range. I couldn't even believe that it was him. When I looked up who the actor was, I was like, oh my god, it's the investigator from Murder in Greenwich. Amazing. And Maggie Grace, who's going to be in Taken 2. She's been in the Lost TV series, the Fog remake. And she's also been in 2 Twilight movies. I really like this movie. I could highly recommend it. Basically, now I'm going to talk about spoilers in the movie, so if you haven't seen it, I suggest to go and see it. And, alright, I'm going to get right down to it pretty much. So everyone knows years later that Michael Skakel got convicted for the murders. He's even and he's appealed it up the ass, and his cousin, Robert Kennedy Jr., I think he was he claims he was with him that night, is his lawyer nowadays, and they're trying to defend that he was with him that night, and this whole case has just been brought on by the hypocrisy of Dominic Dunn, who's the guy who's done all those crime TV shows on murder with rich people. And this is just a great case. So the guy went through all the 80s. He even went through alcohol rehab. He went through different anger management classes, or school for boys, military school, basically Michael Skakel did throughout his early 20s. And then he went on to even work with his family in politics, basically as like the handyman driver, from what I'm saying. And he didn't even get convicted until 2002. And now October 24th, 2012, coming up in a week from now, he's due for his first parole hearing. He got guaranteed 20 years. John Foster, the kid from Mysteries in Pittsburgh, is the actor who plays him. He just looks like Eli Manning. That's what I always say all the time. But I'm going to give this movie, for what it is, made for TV, Lifetime style, pretty compelling, based on the real life. I'll give it a B- for what it is. It wasn't that amazing, but it's pretty interesting and pretty watchable, especially the first time you've seen it. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times, and you get to see young Maggie Grace, who was about 18, 19 when they filmed this. She's about 29 now. Yeah, they make it interesting, and it's a love triangle with basically Michael Skakel was jealous, and even Unsolved Mysteries did that story on it. You could find it on YouTube. And at that time, like, they weren't sure who did it. They left it as an unsolved mysteries case. Weren't sure if it was the Skakels. For the longest time, it got swept under the rug, and the police overlooked it in that town. And no one was afraid to actually go in there and snoop around the house and investigate for clues. Basically, because it was Greenwich, Connecticut, one of the richest communities in the U.S., so there was no investigation. And so he went on to basically live most of his life, and it was looking like he's probably, if he doesn't get his parole hearing within the next day, he'll be out by like 2022, which is like 10 years away, if he isn't paroled by then. Which is pretty sad that he took this 15-year-old girl's life. He beat her with a golf club in the back of the house, coincidentally on Halloween. I don't know if that inspired him. All he claims, though, is that he was jerking off in a tree outside of her house. And that's how his DNA got there, or that's all he fesses up to, or whatnot. And they're so sick that they're trying to blame it on the live-in housekeeper, babysitter, who basically was there to babysit the kids for basically like watch them to not get too out of hand and have drinking parties. And they show parties throughout the movie. It's pretty interesting. I love this movie. I'm out. This was JBM, October 2012 Horror Movie Marathon. Videos coming up, and check out my channel, VillainNews. I'm out, dog.